I got into farming just because it tasted so much better. Like the carrots that we get at the grocery store are basically just kind of orange, liquidy things with no flavor, but a carrot pulled out of the ground is bursting with flavor. I wonder what else tastes like that. And it's everything. Everything tastes that much better. My name's Justin Cutter. My program is called Compass Green. We're sitting inside my mobile greenhouse where I drive a miniature sustainable farm to at-risk youth around the United States. I got this truck in 2011. I'd been traveling in colleges teaching biointensive sustainable farming. My buddy that I grew up with, a friend of ours, had bought a box truck, old potato chip delivery truck, and turned it into a mobile art gallery. And then her project kind of ended and the truck was just sort of rotting away on Long Island. My buddy saw a picture with the windows that they'd installed and thought it looked like a greenhouse, knew I was into farming, and gave me a call. It just clicked. This is what we should do for education. So that was in 2011, had an insane Kickstarter campaign. We're able to raise $27,000, which is what we needed to purchase the truck and build out the greenhouse and switch over so it can run on waste veggie oil. We raised the money, had a crazy month of building, staying up till like 2 in the morning, and then we drove up to our friend's farm in Vermont. We planted our starts while the truck was still just bare bones nothing. So by the time we got to Vermont, we had these little tiny seedlings all ready to go. We got a bunch of really good soil from this epic farmer named Carl the Hammer. Carl Hammer's his name, but we called him Carl the Hammer. He donated all this awesome compost, and then we planted our plants in, and 2 weeks later we taught at our first school. That was 43,000 students ago now. This is Angie. She is a GMC W4500 box truck who has been turned into a mobile greenhouse. Funny thing about the GMC part, it's basically just a logo. This is an Isuzu truck with an Isuzu engine inside it. I converted the turbo diesel to be able to run off waste vegetable oil. Any diesel engine that was made, I think, before 2006 is able to run off of waste vegetable oil. In fact, people say that the first car was made to run off of peanut oil, so this is nothing new. All you have to do is heat the oil and filter it. So here's the hose that I stick in the vat of fryer oil behind the restaurant if they give me permission and if it's legal in that state. This blocks out any major particles of food like French fries or tempura or whatever. I put a handle on here, pump the oil into this tank, passes through another filter in there that filters the oil a lot more finely. And then the next thing is those 2 red hoses over here. And so it carries the hot radiator fluid after it passes through the engine into a copper coil, heats up the oil in here so it's not viscous, and then it's ready to go to the engine. Engine is ready to run off of it. Moving back from the tilt cab in the front, this truck, which was originally a potato chip delivery truck, is now a greenhouse. The type of agriculture that I teach is called biointensive sustainable agriculture, developed by John Jevons. And there's a few different features. One of them is close plant spacing. So you aren't planting in rows, because rows waste space. They're not natural. If it was the best way to grow, you'd see forests just have naturally evolved into rows. Instead, you want plants to reach out and touch each other and create a microclimate and canopy protecting the soil. So if you see over here, I've placed my spinach like one here, one there, and then one in between and one in between, etc., so that when the spinach grows up, the leaves are going to reach out and protect each other in a way similar to how my chard, which is a lot older, is doing right now. So the sunlight comes through the windows, hits the leaf of the chard, which can make use of it, turns it into energy, and at the same time, it protects the soil and stops the soil from drying out. Also, this microclimate holds in humidity, which causes the plants to grow faster. It's just a much better, more natural system. Basically, if you don't have a tractor, you have no reason to have rows in your garden. The soil that I have in here is a high percentage composted material, which makes it really, really lightweight. very nutritious. Also, it stores a lot of water in the ground. So for watering, I'm doing something a little bit different. At least it's different here. They've been using these things called ollas in Mexico for about 400 years. There's records of them being used in China for over 2,000 years. All it is just a clay vessel, clay pot. The ones I have in here are a little bit bigger, but it's porous. So you put it in the ground, fill it with water, the roots travel underground, wrap around it, and suck the water right through the walls. So whenever the plants are thirsty, which some plants are thirstier than others, just like humans, they get to monitor their own water intake, whereas with any other irrigation system, you have to pretty much give them all the same amount of water, and that means too much for some and too little for others, and it definitely means water wasted. This, I put a lid on it, and not a single drop gets lost to evaporation. Every single drop goes directly to the plants. Also, it means for me that I can go ahead and leave my truck somewhere and go on a 5-day backpacking trip or go out of town for a week because I fill it up and the plants can take care of themselves with that water for between 4 and 11 days, depending on how hot it is. There's a whole lot of other things that are appropriate in here, such as planting plants together that would actually support each other. The spinach that I have spaced all over here in close plant spacing and actually benefit by being near the oregano plant, which has an overall beneficial on the plants around it. The kale I have growing over there can make use of the mint that I have nearby that helps it to resist certain insects and diseases, stuff like that. In my garden, I've planted a bunch of things that I like to eat. In your garden, you should plant the things you like to eat. Something I love is chard. My chard is booming. It's been going strong for over 6 months now. I've recently planted a lot more spring things like herbs, like my basil over here, or my mint, or my oregano. I've got bok choy coming up right there. I've got some red Russian kale, which is gonna grow about this tall. It's amazing. It can keep going for ages and ages. This huge plant that's all up in my face here is Inca Berry. It's a superfood from South America. Take these little like Chinese lantern like pods that are growing and open it up. And you've got a nice delicious berry that is loaded with vitamin C. So when I'm traveling to schools and slapping high fives with, you know, tons of germy teenagers, I go ahead and eat some of this and it keeps me nice and healthy. Scattered in and amongst my Inca berries, you can see these little yellow flowers here. This is my cherry tomato plant. You can see some cherry tomatoes have started growing. I really want to make use of every bit of growing space that I have available because I want to get the most food sustainably as possible out of my garden, because every bit of food that I get out of here is some food that I don't need to buy. So this airspace in here, this is usable growing space. I plant a viney plant like a tomato that's going to send its vines all over here. This tomato plant, as it grows, will send its vines all through here, and I'm really making use of every bit of growing space available, even the airspace in here. One thing that is super easy, these are called garden huckleberries. Looks a lot like deadly nightshade, which sometimes I get a PTA member who's coming to the visit who will be like, Are you bringing deadly nightshade around to my little students? I'm like, nah, this stuff is all good to eat. You drop a berry on the ground, you'll get 3 plants, you know, in a couple of months. It grows so well. It's worthwhile mentioning some of the growing techniques of bio-intensive sustainable agriculture. One feature is deep soil preparation. If I was outside in my backyard, that would mean I would be loosening up the soil with a digging fork 24 inches deep. In my garden, it just means I have nice deep garden beds so that when I'm driving, for one thing, the plants don't fall over, but for another thing, the roots really have a lot of room to spread out and absorb more nutrients. Another really important feature is my compost pile. If you see here, nature's trying to compost already. These leaves that I haven't eaten are dying on the ground. Over the course of time, they'll eventually be chewed up by worms and turned back into soil, so the nutrients locked in this leaf will become available for future generations of chard. Humans can go ahead and interact with nature by doing it in a compact format. So I take this dead leaf and I put it in my pile. In about 3 months, this breaks down and turns into healthy, life-giving, nutrient-rich soil, which I can put back into my garden to keep growing more plants. So no garden, even if it's in the back of a truck, would be complete without a compost pile. This is from my rainwater catchment system. If you look at the pipe, it will go up to a gutter I built on the back of the roof. Go ahead and use this to fill up my watering can. And then for my little tiny plants that still have short roots, I go ahead and just top water them like this. And then for my bigger plants whose roots are already to the oyas, then I use this to fill up the oyas. So I do have some problems with bugs because this is a real farm, but these bugs are telling me that my soil needs a little bit of work. Or in this case, these bugs are telling me that I need more air circulation. But bugs are nature's way of correcting a problem. They're trying to destroy my plant, break it down so that it'll turn back into soil, and then it'll make more healthy soil for the future. When farmers go along and they just spray pesticides to kill the bugs, one, they're putting poison on our food, which is obviously dumb, but two, they are not listening to nature trying to speak to them and say, hey, look, you've got a problem in the soil, or you've got a problem with air circulation there. You should deal with it. We're sending you a message. This leaf right here, this is sow thistle. It's in the dandelion family. This is a weed. I have this in here on purpose, though, to demonstrate to people that there are a lot of edible weeds. Some of them are really nutritious, and it's okay to go ahead and pull out your weeds and put them on your compost pile or get rid of them in another way. But it's nice to broaden our mind of like what actually is a weed. This is something that is actually quite tasty and really good for me. One step that I would recommend to people that they could make today is to talk to friends and look up where their local farmers market is, and then go there to get some of their food. Another thing that's really, really easy, think of something that you really like to eat, any kind of vegetable or herb, and plant some, whether it's in your windowsill or your backyard, whatever you have. There's something special about growing food because you're having this communion with the earth. The plant is absorbing nutrients from the soil. That plant is turning the sun into energy that you can then eat and get that energy in your body. And you're interacting with the ocean because this plant uses water that has evaporated off the ocean. It's as simple as just growing food because it tastes better, but there is a sense of that. When you do start doing it, you start to realize the connection that you're having, and so it's a very natural process. What you eat, you become, and you're eating the earth, the sun, and the oceans, just in this little spinach over here.